And welcome back, everyone, to the Pokemon Team Creation Series. We're back to another one from my personal list. As I've said, I have, with all the kind of make a team or create something type of video series, I have a personal list of characters I go by, or I should say, worlds, stories, animes, media that I go to. And I have the list of all the Godzilla stuff on there. So, kaijus, whatnot. And Mothra was the next one that came up on the list. Now, Mothra, you would think, is pretty obvious. I mean, you throw a Volcarona on the team, which obviously was going to be on the team, and you're good to go. Because everyone's like, Volcarona, it's Mothra. Okay, great. But you still got to fill out that other 5. So, where do you go from there? Do I just make it all Moths? Well, I hate to tell you, at best, there's only, Dustox, Mothim, now I'm at, because butterflies don't count. Mothra's technically not even a moth. She's a kaiju that just is in the form of an insectoid moth. But Mothra's name is Mothra, so it has to be a moth, not a butterfly. Although, technically speaking, the legendary version of Mothra is a little bit more butterfly with, weirdly, a lot of insect parts to her as well. But regardless, yeah, there's not actually enough moth Pokemon out there to fill out the list. So, I mean, I could also go on Venomoth, but Venomoth really doesn't work that well. Although the whole dust coming off of the wings kind of works. So regardless, Volcarona was an obvious one to put on the team. But where do I go from there? Well, another insect that made it onto the team, weirdly enough, was one I haven't used before, Masquerain. Now, why did I go with Masquerain? Well, one, it's an insect. It's a bug. I can't remember exactly what it's supposed to be based off of. It's not a moth per se. It's like a damselfly or something like that. I can't remember exactly. But what stood out to me was the obvious thing right here, its face. Or I should say, the false face it has, looking like a large predator rather than the bug that it actually is. I used one, I think, either in my first playthrough or my second playthrough of Ruby. I like Masquerain. It's actually a cute Pokemon. It really is, actually. I wondered if it evolved even further beyond its initial form, but it didn't. That was fine. I am wondering, though, because remember, this is Pokemon. What Pokemon is it trying to imitate? Its eyes, its face looks like a nose. Its eyes look like its wings look like wing ears, I guess we'll call it, look like eyes. But I wonder what type of Pokemon it's trying to imitate. It's got a little bit of like Noctowl vibes with the eyes, but not really. I'm not sure. What do you think it's trying to imitate? My guess is because its little small wings there are looking like whiskers, it's imitating some sort of feline, but there's nothing really within like the region of Hoenn that I can remember that looks quite like that. I don't know, or maybe it's not trying to imitate anything. Regardless, the eye spots on this mirror the eye spots on Mothra very well, particularly if you look, particularly going to the legendary one again. That one really gives off the intimidating eye spot pattern, more so than even some of the other versions. So I actually like the idea of giving it Masquerain, because it also has the ability to intimidate usually, which is the whole idea. It's that it's scaring the opponent, and through that, I just like the idea, personally. I like that. And Mothra is intimidating. She's the queen of the monsters. But what also Mothra does is reincarnate. Mothra's kind of functionally immortal. When Mothra dies, it's like soul, essence, whatever, reincarnates into the next Mothra, or Mothras. So, because we know there have been multiple Mothras before. Hence, I believe it was Godzilla versus Mothra, where there was like 2 different little Mothra larvae there, so we know there can be multiple Mothras at once. So that means you needed a Pokemon that could just represent the grub, to represent the baby Mothra. And there are multiple different grubs we could have gone with. Grubbin stood out to me initially. I was trying to go with something that design-wise kind of looked like the actual Mothra larva, but there really isn't anything that looks quite like that. Beyond that, though, I mean, Grubbin kind of, but it has too much of like a stag beetle look to it, so I didn't want to go that route. Wurmple was not a bad option, but there's a little too much design-wise going on with Wurmple. Weedle didn't work because the Mothras the Mothra larvae anyway, don't really have like points, like poisonous tips or anything like that. So ultimately, I ended up on Caterpie. Caterpie's kind of the OG bug, the OG grub, the OG caterpillar, and it works. It just works. It's not going to be, and let me rephrase that. It's not going to be like evolving on the team because I never look at it from the point of if this team was fully evolved. I'm looking for the thing that matches them narratively, personally, characteristics-wise. But the upside to that is if you were to fully evolve it, Caterpie evolves into Butterfree, which if you were to Gigantamax it, turns into a Mothra type form. So there you go. But because it's a Pokemon that reincarnates, in essence, it's a monster that reincarnates, a kaiju of life and protection, the Pokemon of life itself, Xerneas, made sense. A Pokemon that goes into hibernation, slumbers, wakes up, then does it again. I like that idea, honestly. I thought that was not a bad way to go about it. Oh, excuse me. Oh. And so, it would also make sense being that, well, Corona, as powerful as it is not a legendary Pokemon. It could have been, honestly. It's got the design to either be a pseudo or a legendary, but they just didn't, which, whatever. But, Mothra is kind of a legendary kaiju in her own right. She is among the strongest kaijus around. So, it made sense to have Xerneas, who A, represents life, and Mothra constantly reincarnates, and B, is a legendary Pokemon who has the power to back up Mothra's legendary status. Now, that leads us to the last Mons on the team. And this came down to two scenarios to me. Because who was going to represent this aspect of Mothra? No, that's not what I want to do. That's what I want to do. Was lift that up a little bit. Who was going to represent the last aspect of Mothra all came down to if I could fill out a fifth member on the team. Because I had two options. I had two of the same Pokemon, or I had one Pokemon. And I'll explain with the other one, with the one I didn't go with, in just a second. But when talking about Mothra in almost any incarnation, even to some degree they allude to it in the Legendary series, there are the twins. There are the little twin fairy girls who are like, not the guardians of Mothra, they are like the emissaries of Mothra. I can't remember exactly what they represent, but they are, they accompany Mothra. They are, they got Mothra's back. They are there to communicate for Mothra. And so I thought of that. I'm like, okay, I'm filling this team out. I got to the fourth team. And I'm struggling because at that point, like, is there anything else I can put on the team before going to the first Mon I chose? Or do I have to go with my second option? Now, ultimately, I did go with my second option, which was not one, but two Flabébés, the twin fairies. They're also, I think the Gimmighoul without the chest is technically the smallest Pokemon that exists. Because I think Gimmighoul is like an inch tall, if I'm not mistaken. One second here. Gimmighoul. Let me find out. Let me just see again how tall Gimmighoul is without the chest. With the chest, Gimmighoul is not the smallest Pokemon around. It's just not. Without it, though, I think they're either the same size as Flabébés or they are smaller than Flabébés. And I say Flabébés like that because why not? Flabébés. All right. Gimmighoul. Where are you, Gimmighoul? Oh God. Thank you. There we go. Gimmighoul. Oh, there. Well, Gimmighoul. Apparently, Gimmighoul. And yes, actually, it's sorry. No, its roaming form is the same size as Flabébé. Apparently, the Gimmighoul roaming form, which you still can't catch for whatever reason, it does have its own stats, by the way. It's faster than chest form, but its other stats are basically the same. So, which is interesting. Like, they clearly intended for you to be able to catch the roaming form Gimmighoul at some point, but they just never implemented it. It also lacks defenses compared to chest form. But again, it makes up for having like 70 plus speed over it. So it's got a base speed of 80, so it's really not that bad. It even has ability run away. So I don't know. Well, let me know if that's ever been updated in the game, if you can catch a roaming form Gimme Ghoul or not. Either way, doesn't really matter. And Goldengo is just really cool. But regardless, yes, Gimme Ghoul is the same height as but Flabebe, the two twin fairies that, are, again, I can't remember if they're emissaries, representatives. They're not protectors of Mothra, at least I don't think they are. But they almost always accompany Mothra, are there to communicate for Mothra. And so I knew they had to be part of the team. Now you might be wondering, well, what was the other Pokemon that I had for an idea for the team? Because I needed two Pokemon to represent the twins. Well, the idea initially was actually to go with Tandemaus, because Tandemaus is actually two Pokemon. Like, it's two individuals that are just kind of holding hands constantly, and then, if you're lucky, you'll get a mouse hold when they evolve. I'll tell you this, I like the concept of Tandemaus and Mousehold. I do not like the design at all, because they literally look like stuffed animals. But that's neither here nor there. So, with that said, how balanced, as always, is the team for Mothra? And really, the only two types that really run through this team are Flying and Rock, and even then, it's not by a large amount, because we have 3 pure Fairy types on the team, which all have just Steel and Poison as their main weakness. That means that, and that's only times 2 weakness across that half of the board. Now, granted, that means that Poison and Steel is going to run half this team, but there's only 2 types that actually affect half the team, whereas there are 3 types that affect the other half of the team, and that is Flying and Rock. Now, Volcarona has its own share of weaknesses as well, with Ground and Water. Masquerain has Electric, but overall, it's not that bad. But there are 3 types alone that cleave through half this team, and that would not improve if Caterpie were fully evolved, or first off, Flabebe stays Floette stays a pure, not Floette, Florges stays a pure Fairy type, so it would not change that. And then you would actually add another Electric type weakness onto the team if you turned it into a Butterfree, because of the Electric weakness that Flying has. So it's actually a little bit better that Caterpie is still a Caterpie. Either way, and to be fair, you could go with either Floette or Florges if you wanted for the 2 fairies, but because these guys are so small, it made more sense this way. I digress, though. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. What did you think of Mothra's team? Do you like this team? Do you dislike this team? If you do, what would you do differently? Let me know in the comments below. But thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Later.